Black less than the Red Sox, and Joe Cronin then. He's in the Hall of Fame.
Yep.
So get him out. All right. Get Cap Anson out, a guy who played the 80s for the Chicago Cubs. Get him out. Cap Anson, a guy who was a good player and a good manager, but somebody who invented the segregation of baseball. Get him out. He's in the Hall of Fame. Why is it fair that he should be in if we're talking about the moral part of this and how these guys should be in and shouldn't be in? Get him out. Get Kennedy Mountain Landis out. That's the guy who banned the White Sox, the Black Sox scandal. He handled all that. That's when he was the commissioner. Nobody wanted Robinson in the league less than that guy. Get them out. If it's about that, then get them out. Then be sturdy in your position. That's what the baseball's problem is. They're not consistent.
Yeah,
they're not consistent in your threat to the integrity of the game, quote unquote.
If we're holding them to that standard, that's one of the more ridiculous things we'll hear come out of Rob Manfred's mouth. And I had a real problem the way the commissioner handled the Astros situation. This is
integrity of the game. Then why does Houston still have the title?
Exactly.
Why does Houston still have the title?
I am going to go to that card. And the fact that Joe Kelly, the pitcher for the Dodgers at the time, gave a gesture, let's put it that way, to the Astros bench. He got suspended more games than any of those cheater pumpkin eaters for the Astros.
Now, the one thing about that is the players got immunity. So you're talking about a legal thing here. The players got immunity from it in order to talk out. That's why Mike Fiers is the one who was the whistleblower on this, who was on the A's at the time when he came out with the scandal. But yes, I understand. You wanted to get the players suspended. The real punishment would be vacate the title.
Yep.
Players are fine. You can't suspend the players. What we can do is strip your ring. That's what they should have done. You want to talk about integrity of the game? You had an example right there. MLB, nobody's more inconsistent with how they handle their principles than the Major League Baseball.
And that's why I can't take Rob Manfred seriously when he's going to say that about Pete Rose. But on the flip side of things, he botched that Astros situation. And you were in agreements, right? I understand, fine. Immunity, all right, whatever. If he couldn't do anything to the players, fine. Whatever.
Yeah, that's it. And vacate the title. That's enough.
But at the same time, he botched it.
He didn't vacate the title. That's why, you're right. 100%.
He botched it.
100%. You can't just ban Cora, Hinch, and the general manager for a year, and that's it.
I can't believe those guys are allowed to coach. If I'm being completely honest, I cannot believe Alex Cora and A.J. Hinch have jobs. And maybe that's taking it a step too far. And maybe I am a bitter Cleveland fan who they were banging the drums against for 2 years straight. But at the same time, I can't believe.
New York is the team that really has to be pissed off.
For sure, but and I've told you this story before. I covered the guards at the time, and I was close with Clevenger. And Clev looked at me and said, Riz, they knew what I was throwing. I can't explain it. They all came back. We did the end of the season interviews. Clev and Bauer were the ones that were livid about it. And it turns out a couple of years later it happened, and Clev grabbed me in the locker room and said, did I not tell you during the exit interviews? They were doing something.
New York is the team that should be pissed off because they lost all 4 in that series in the ALCS against the Astros in 2017. Also, Altuve stole an MVP from Judge that year as well if he was a big cheater then. We got to talk to Steve Politzino, the Good Karma Brands president, on the flip side and close out the program from the Baptist Health Iceplex in Fort Lauderdale. It's Russo Rizzo, ESPN 106.3.
Live from the Anajar and Levine Accident Attorney Studios. Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. Call 1-800-747-FREE. This is ESPN 106.3.
Hi, I'm Scott Smith with Smith Ball Baez and Prather, Florida Injury Lawyers. As you have likely seen and heard, law and in super lawyers. But most importantly, we have experienced lawyers located right here in Palm Beach County and the Treasure Coast that are ready to be your advocate and your voice, and fully prepared to start fighting for your legal rights today. Our purpose, legal power. Our mission, huge results. If you've been injured, the lawyers at Smith Ball Baez and Prather will help. Call us at 500-HELP, 500-HELP. With Smith Ball Baez and Prather, help is just a local phone call away. Offices Palm Beach Gardens, Boca Raton, and Port St. Lucie.
Tired of being sidelined by a sports injury? Get back in the game with Baptist Health Orthopedic Care. Whether you're a professional athlete or even a weekend warrior, you can get back to doing what you love with our compassionate orthopedic team. Experience a new level of care and get back to your best. Welcome to being treated like a pro. Make an appointment today at baptisthealth.net/ortho or call 833-556-6764.
Clinton and Friends hits the air weekdays, 10 a.m.
I told you guys that I went to the LAFC game when Messi was here. I got an email that was like, yo, heard you were at the game. Do you want to come on ESPN West Palm Beach? I was like, yeah, sure. I was handling my son, KJ, who is barely 5 months old. How am I going to keep him quiet? My son is my son, and he's a yapper. He likes to talk, and I told Mike Rizzo, my son's going to be here. If he chooses to talk, we're just going to have to deal with it. KJ didn't say a word. The force is strong within that one.
Clinton and Friends, weekdays at 10 on ESPN 106.3.
Let's get back to the Anajar and Levine Accident Attorney Studios. This is Russo and Rizzo on ESPN 106.3.
Well, if you're thinking about your AC system and the prices are eventually going to rise, you got to think about the tariffs here. All materials, most materials on almost all AC systems, they have components that are made overseas, shipped to the United States. What does that mean? Price increases are expected to continue throughout the summer. Many vendors are preparing for this with major price increases on their AC units. You got to think locally here. John C. Cassidy Air Conditioning and Plumbing have been proudly serving Palm Beach County since 1960. If you go to CassidyAC.com, you can get one of Cassidy's highly trained technicians to your home to troubleshoot, perform diagnostic checks on your system. Doesn't even matter the brand or the age. That's what they have for you. And you got to make sure that with the summer months basically here in South Florida, you don't want sticky season to catch you at the wrong time and all of a sudden you have a faulty AC unit. So go get started at CassidyAC.com and make sure you are up to date on your air conditioning unit. That's John C. Cassidy Air Conditioning and Plumbing. Colin Russo, Mike Rizzo, Christian Catt, Russo and Rizzo, ESPN 106.3. Like to welcome in good friend of programming. He's the Good Karma Brands president, the Palm Beach Sports Commission Hall of Famer. It is Steve Politziner with us now. Steve, welcome in. How are you?
Hey, guys. Good to be with you.
Steve, I want to get your thoughts on this before we get into the Knicks. I know you want to talk about the Knicks. But most importantly, Pete Rose not getting into the Hall of Fame. You're a big baseball guy, or getting reinstated for a chance to get into the Hall of Fame. He has not gotten in for all these years because he was on the banned list. I thought baseball did a really bad job here with Manfred coming out and saying that, hey, he's no longer a threat to the game. He has served, quote-unquote, his lifetime ban. He is no longer alive. Therefore, he can now get into baseball. I think this is a tasteless look and a tasteless way to do it. What's your perspective on how they've handled Pete Rose and shoeless Joe Jackson in the last 24 hours?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Colin, in the delivery of it all. Like, it was clear, like, when he dies, we'll readdress this. And even in that case, like, given some time, maybe, like, what's the difference? What changed? I've always maintained that Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame, and it should be as a player, because his improprieties did not occur when he was a player. He was Charlie Hustle. He might have played, he played fierce. He played hard. He played to win. And there was never any question about that. He isn't a Hall of Fame manager anyway. So we can that's when he gets bet on the game, and that's when that part of his career isn't why he's in the Hall of Fame. There's great players that weren't great managers that are in the Hall of Fame. There's also guys that aren't in the Hall of Fame because of tons of baseball stupidity. And I put this one at that. It would have been would have been so easy, but the dig your heels in mentality of baseball sometimes, to me, here on full display.
Steve, do you think they gatekeep the writers and everyone who votes? Do you think they gatekeep that Hall of Fame too much?
Well, I think one of the things is it's an uncomfortable position for writers, like that they're supposed to be the moral compass. I've never liked that. I've spoke to many writers over the years, know some NFL Hall of Fame voters. It's an enormously uncomfortable spot for them to be in, that it's like writers and people know who they are. And you almost feel like you need a evolving commission of former players, executives, beyond just the media, to be the ones. And now, the steroid era. What's a writer supposed to do? Why is a writer supposed to keep somebody out or put somebody in? They should not be they should not be cleaning up the messes of baseball and its inability to manage the Players Association and its inability to manage owners for years and years and years.
Well, one thing you got to consider, too, is I agree with you on the front of the writers. The one thing I'll say is players get in and then they want to gatekeep it behind them, so that'd be a tricky scenario there. But with Pete Rose specifically, it's going to be that committee, that Hall of Fame hand-selected committee that is going to determine whether he gets in or not. It's not going to be the writers because he is no longer on that 15-year ballot post-career. So the writers can no longer vote because they don't think the writers had the view on it. I'm surprised that that's the case. I do not like that it's a 16-person committee and he needs 75% of the vote to get in. But that is how that's going to work. I don't think that's the right way to do it. And for me, I think this is baseball at its finest, looking hypocritical. If you're so big on the principle, either he should be in or he shouldn't be in. This is not about serving a suspension. Since when is about getting a guy into the Hall of Fame about the fan? It is not about the fan. It is about the player. So all of a sudden now we're going to honor this player now that he is no longer here to reap the benefit of this great honor in getting the induction to the Hall of Fame. I think baseball looks really bad here, and I think they look really hypocritical.
Totally agree with you. And it's just that problem with baseball. I know we're all baseball fans. Like this out of touchness, this missed opportunity. And yes, Rose wasn't honest. Yes, Rose could have done himself some favors early on. He eventually came clean, and baseball could have put him in, and I believe without egg on their face, and really made it about. He apologized. He made mistakes. We recognize him as a player and literally just talk about him as a player. And that would have been the end of it. Way too much about what happened with him as a manager and the cheating. Talk about him as a player. In fact, a lot of kids today could take a lesson from the way Pete Rose played.
Steve, what stuck out to you the most about the NBA playoffs so far?
Well, a couple things. How about defense? How about defense in the OKC Denver series? Welcome back, defense. OKC's defense has been, I'd say almost their underrated because it's not sexy, piece of the puzzle. And you look at their defensive ratings and efficiency, it's been incredible, and it's great to see that more on display. And then, how can you just say anything besides the Pacers? The Pacers have been the slayers, and they've been doing it for 2 years. And they finally, you got to give them their flowers at some point. They're a real team.
Mike still hasn't.
And they're
Mike
a real
still
team,
hasn't.
and then deal with it. They could be playing in the NBA Finals.
I think their brand of basketball is certainly physical, and I think it's throwing teams off guard. The Cavs were a finesse team. I feel like once they get to the Knicks play that style of basketball. The Knicks bounced, arguably, that same Cavalier team from the playoffs 2 years ago. I am very interested to see the Knicks and the Pacers go toe-to-toe. I think the Knicks handle them pretty easily. Maybe my blinders are on a bit easily.
Yeah.
I think my blinders are on a bit
Pacers
here,
are a
Uncle Steve.
better team than they are. They score better. They're more consistent.
I think it's the Knicks' year to get to the finals. I can't promise you they're going to win it, but I think New York, and the mecca of basketball, I think they're finally going to get a trip to the NBA Finals from the looks of it.
Yeah, I mean, first you have to get there.
Sure, but
the Celtics were a favorite tonight, and you have to think maybe they're going to get a little bit. I know no Tatum, but hey, let's all pick it up for Tatum that's out. The hometown crowd, maybe some 8-on-5 with the refs. So I still think you're coming back. I still think you're coming back to New York for a Game 6. But yes, without Tatum, I do think the Knicks would close them out. You're underestimating, though, the Pacers the way everyone else underestimated the Pacers. And as a Cavs fan, you should not be doing that.
Yeah, isn't that rich? Oh, my God.
So, Steve,
that just got crushed.
Steve, the Cavs blew a 7-point lead with 40 seconds left. That's where they lost the series. So that's why I think it's gimmicky. That's why I don't think the better team won.
Gimmicky.
I think that when it comes to Cleveland, they have to look at themselves. And I don't mean to go in about the Cavs. When you look at Cleveland's got to look at themselves in the mirror and go, yeah, we got punched in the face and we didn't know how to handle it. And this is the third straight year of that garbage happening. Players not playing because they got toe aches and thumbs. I'm sick of it. I'm over it. And as a Cleveland fan, I'm disgusted that the better team didn't win.
Better team. Mike, they should have beat them. They lost in 5.
Yeah, if they win that game,
exactly.
they win that game too. Boys, they win. They win that game.
Justin
too.
Herbert.
My God.
They win that.
Mike,
They're up 7 points
do
with
that
40
better team.
seconds left. 40 seconds left. They're up 7 points. Stop it. They lost the
Can't do it.
series.
You lost in 5.
They
I
lost
agree.
the series
I
right
completely
there.
agree, Steve. You
didn't
can't do
win
it.
a game on your home court. You were
Yeah,
done.
how is that the better team
Because
then?
you were done.
You're digging your own grave here. How is that the better team? They can't.
Yeah.
They're
I agree.
0-5 against the Pacers in that
You were
building
done.
all season.
You were done the moment you blew a 7-point lead in 40 seconds in the fourth quarter.
You're acting like that has nothing to do with the team. That has everything to do with the team. The team wasn't that good. That's the bottom line.
3 best players weren't playing in it anyway.
They lost game 1. And I know they didn't have Garland, but they lost game 1. They would have been a 1-1 series anyway. And they blew a 20-point lead yesterday. So how'd that work out? Can't say that's the best team that best team lost. Steve Politziner with us. Steve, tell us really quickly about what's going on with Duffy's.
Oh, guys, I mean, what isn't going on with Duffy's? I think is the better question right now. I mean, you got playoff hockey, you got playoff basketball going on, and where would you rather watch it than the place that was voted the best sports grill in 2024 with the award-winning burgers and wings, the weekday lunch deals, and the double play, just starting at $7.99. The famous 2-for-1, and of course, when you get the MVP card, above and beyond that, you start earning all of the rewards. 80 TVs to watch whatever it is that you want to watch. Won't be able to watch the Cavs. Sorry, Mike Rizzo. Duffy'sMVP.com. Duffy's, our game is always on.
Steve, we appreciate it as always. Really quickly, Steve, we got about a minute and a half here. Tell us, how many screens are you when you have a sports setup and you're watching a game? Mike has about 7 screens. I think that's completely gluttonous. I don't think that's the right way to watch games. I think 2, 3 max, depending on what it is. What's your setup?
Yeah, 2 max, like 2 actual TVs. And then, you're checking some stuff maybe on your phone, maybe more stat-wise. I'm not a big, watch the game on my phone guy. I mean, I obviously will if I'm not home, but if I'm setting this all up, give me some size 2, because at most, can you really focus? I like a basketball game and a baseball game. Baseball's slow,
100% agree.
and you can get the basketball game faster. Basketball, hockey, but you have to decide what's your priority. Because if you try to watch them both at the same time, I find you're watching nothing. 7 screens at the same time, Mike. That you know what, Mike? That's why your take is so bad about the Cavs being the better team. You probably
watch the Pacers enough.
things at the same time.
When the Pacers lose at 5 to the Knicks, you all owe me an apology.
Steve, we appreciate it. We'll talk soon.
See you guys. Thank you.
Bye, Steve.
Steve Politziner, the Good Karma Brands president. That's Mike Rizzo, Colin Russo. Stick around because we got Jonathan Zaslow, the voice of the 305, doing a little Panther pregame, Game 5 at 7 p.m. Zaz will take you up until 7 right here on ESPN 106.3.